All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to actually work from home as an apartment locator versus working in office, right? If you're a current apartment locator or you know anything about this business, right? The dream is to work from home, but some of you guys are confused and you don't really know why you're confused and you don't really know what's happening, right? I mean, that's the reality of it, right? So in this video, we're going to go ahead and demystify, if working remote is better, maybe working in office is better, what are the requirements, all that stuff is just going to be resolved in this video, okay? So if you were ever curious about working from home, or if it's possible, or if it's the right thing to do, then stay tuned throughout the whole entire video, because I get this question so much, like in my private Facebook group, or on YouTube, or sometimes people send me DMs on Instagram. I just get this question so much, so I figured I would make a detailed video and then just kind of knock this out and answer it very thoroughly, so that way I get less DMs and questions over this, and I can just demystify the myth and prove to you that working from home is the best thing to do. All right, let's get started. So the problem right now, and why you're probably confused on what you should do, work from home or focus on working in the office, is because some brokers in our little, relatively small niche business of apartment locating will require you to work in office. Like, you have to show up in office as if you were an employee, and then it's a requirement, and then you have to drive your clients around and escort and show them properties, right? Why is this happening still in 2022? That's the big question, right? So this is basically the answer to why your brokerage firm may actually require you to work in office, right? So this is basically the answer, right? When you actually work in office and you're working with a client face to face, right, and you're building that rapport in person, and you're driving them around to their top 3 options after you do like an hour or 2-hour appointment with them, your chances of that client actually signing a lease and doing a deal and closing dramatically improve, as opposed to just talking to someone over the phone and sending them a list and hoping that they remember to write your name down and that they close, right? There's no argument that you will close more often than not if you work in office. That's why your brokerage firm is requiring you to come into the office and work, because they know you're going to close at a better closing ratio, right? So everyone agrees with that. But what brokerage firms and other companies fail to do is think outside of the box and do basic math, basically, right? So even though you close at a higher rate, working in office with people in front of you and driving them around and jumping on the little go-kart thing, even though that closes at a higher rate, say 50%, is pretty realistic. Like, if someone comes in and you sit down with them for 2 hours and then you go show them and drive them to the property, you have like a 50% chance of closing, right? That's really, really high. But if you work and actually focus and prioritize working over the phone, you can actually, instead of one client that you're helping in office for 2 hours, is what it normally takes, or longer if there's traffic in your city, right? If it takes you 2 hours to do one in-office appointment, over the phone, your whole entire picking up the ad call, walking them through, explaining them how it works, and then sending them the list and going through the pre-qual, all of that gets done in 10 minutes over the phone, right? If your marketing is at the right level, right? So assuming your marketing's decent, just playing level playing field here, right? You can work with more quantity of clients over the phone per 10-minute phone call appointments, and you don't have to drive anywhere or be anywhere. So if it takes you 10 minutes to go ahead and thoroughly work and vet and send off a prospect over the phone, how many clients can you do in a 2-hour period, right? 2 hours is 120 minutes, right? Divide 120 minutes, which is 2 hours, divided by 10 minutes per one phone appointment, that's 12 chances, right? So even though you will close at a much less closing ratio rate if you're working people over the phone, your closing ratio is like 20%, right? So that's less than double. That's more than half as good as working people in the office, right? But you have 12 chances, right? So if you do the basic math right now, if you do a 2-hour appointment in person for 2 hours with one person, what's 50% of one appointment, right? That's 0.5. But there's no such thing as closing 0.5 deals, right? So 0.5, you would round down to 0. So you're basically going to risk making no money if you do 2 hours for one appointment, where if you took that same time and worked 12 clients each for 10 minutes, you have 12 chances of closing at a 20% rate, right? So what is 20% of 12 chances of 12 people? 20% of 12 is 2.4 guaranteed closings, right? And if the average commission is like $1,000 to $3,000, especially now it's closer to $3,000 because rents have increased. You know, it's March of 2022. Rents are going up and there's no inventory, right? So that's 2.5 closings guaranteed because you're closing at a 20% ratio, right? So 2.4 multiplied by, say, a $2,000 commission is you just made whatever 2.4 times 2,000 is, right? So like over $4,000 guaranteed when you work remote in the same time period, because you're closing at a lower rate, but you're talking to more quantity of people. You know, over one chance, and you'll probably not close them because 50% of one is 0.5, right? So you'd round down. So the point is, the math doesn't lie. You can just get through more of a bulk of clients when you work remote. And also, you could be in Italy as long as they have Wi-Fi, you know, or London or Japan, as long as they have Wi-Fi and you have a laptop, right? And so what's the value in not having to show up, see a supervisor that annoys you, or having to drive and wasting money on gas? There's a lot of value there, right? And you make more money because you're talking to more of a bulk of clients. And if you actually are a student in my coaching program, I will actually teach you ways to increase your closing ratio over just standard 20% by working them over the phone with little tactics that I have thought of that really help you increase your closing ratio over the phone. Like some of the things I teach are like working with shortcode snippets by using a certain software. And if you can't afford that software, if you have an iPhone, you can actually do it for free in the settings of your iPhone. Like, no one knows this, but in the settings of your iPhones, you can set up shortcode snippets and save time that way instead of having to respond the same thing over and over again, right? So I teach little tactics like that to save you time and to increase your closing ratios. I also teach to do like a selfie video following up with the client and greeting the client and answering common questions. So that way you can just shoot those videos over automatically through your shortcode snippets, right? So I teach all these little tactics that, you know, seem like not a big deal, but when you're working in a business like apartment locating and things are moving so fast and you're working with so many leads, a lot of the teachings that are found in my coaching program will really save you hours and hours of time and really help you increase your closing ratio. So then it definitely makes sense to work from home, right? So on to the next point. Some properties actually do not allow you to invoice and receive payment if you didn't show up with the client in person on their first tour ever of the community, right? So it's like half the apartments do that. Other markets are different, right? Like in Denver, Colorado, a lot of them will accept you don't even have to be there. In a lot of Texas, like more than half the properties, you don't even really have to be there, right? So it's like it's 50-50 on the properties that require you to go in person and show up. But there's actually a solution to actually send over an invoice and get compensated, even if the apartment requires you to be escorting and bringing your client in person, right? There's actually a way around that. There's a couple ways around that too that I teach all my students so we can continue working remote and increasing our income. So one of the ways is that if you lease sight unseen or your client's not in town, typically the apartment will have to honor that because there was no way that you could have escorted if your client is out of state. So that's like always a guaranteed closing, right? Even if the property doesn't pay on send, which is the term. Now, the other technique is to basically explain and outline in a professional email and a professional recording of basically the same email, but just done on video. You compile those two things, the video response and then the email template, on how working remote makes sense for you, makes sense for your client, and makes sense for the building. And really quickly, without just giving away the whole script that my students have paid for, you basically touch on how you remove the income ceiling by working remote based on the math we just talked about. So you add that in the email, and then you say how it makes more sense to the apartment community as well, because they're not having to wait on the locator and then just kind of cross paths with their leasing agents that the apartments hire to take clients on tour, you know, so it's more comfortable for both the on-site leasing agent and the locator as well. If we work remote, that also allows us to send them more qualified and quantity of leads to their property if we're not, you know, just having to drop 2 or 3 hours for one single property. So we can give the building more qualified referrals and chances to close if we work remote. So that helps the building. So you outline that in the email, and it also helps the client as well, because clients don't want to be bombarded with 2 professionals, you know, showing them property and both trying to close them. So it's more comfortable for the client. The client doesn't have to drive all the way to wherever your weird office is, right? What if your office is north and your client's coming south, right? You know, so it's safer, saves the client time, gas. So it's really a better experience to work remote for all parties involved, the client, the building, and then yourself, because we make more money that way, and then we can work from home, right? So you outline all of that. I give scripts and I give the video template of how to say that professionally over video. One of the tips I teach in my course is to like send the script over to Fiverr.com and pay like $20 or $50 max for a spokesperson to do the script for you, like in case you're shy to be on camera, right? So I always have solutions for even the shy students to join my program, right? It's not an excuse anymore to be shy. We can still make money if you just go ahead and work smart instead of working hard. That's what my masterclass is all about. But anyways, we just went over the math. So working remote is definitely very superior. And even if the property tells you that you're not going to get paid because you didn't escort, you just send over the email and the video response, and it works like 50% of the time. Right? So you can still try to collect on commissions where you didn't actually escort the client. And there's just so many buildings that don't care in the first place that my income doesn't even get affected, right? So that's how you do that, and that's how you continue to make 6 figures with ease, is by following that advice. And the next point I want to talk about is really just the mental anguish, right? It's very stressful to have to drive somewhere every single day and show up as an employee. It takes a lot of your energy to just drive. Like, just driving a lot as a real estate agent really drains you of a lot of energy, right? Like driving to your office, showing 3 different properties per client. You're probably maxed out or 2 or 3 appointments per day, and that's so much driving around, and it really just drains you, where that energy would better be spent making new advertisements or testing new ad copy, or just spending more time on the phone closing people, right? It's really more draining to have to go to an office and drive people around and waste time like a newbie apartment locator, where your time could be much more efficiently spent if you just focus on working from home. You know, then you get less mentally drained, because when you start working, you're at home, and when you're done working, you're still at home, right? So you make more money and you're less mentally drained, and you're also safer, right? That's the next point. You're safer, right? You know that most accidents happen on the road when someone's following someone or you're following them. Like, that's how accidents happen, right? Like, you don't want to miss an exit and then you crash and you wreck. Anyways, less driving means you're safer, just if you value your own human life, right? So there's just tons of benefits from working from home, and that's basically all of the benefits. And lastly, we're going to finish this video off with a super valuable question that somebody asked me. Yes, we know that working from home is better. It's how we make more money. It makes sense for all parties involved, and it's safer, right? And then you work less. But I had someone ask me in my private Facebook group, they were asking if they should set an appointment for their clients to actually show up to the building, right? The answer here will probably surprise you, because I like to teach this business in a different way that most brokers and agents are not really used to, but I've just split tested everything, so I know this works better, right? The answer is no. You should not actually call ahead of time and set an appointment for your client to tour at a building, even if you're working from home, right? And the answer is no, for a reason, right? The thing is, you don't want to set appointments for your clients for showings, because you're basically tying your name and endorsing that your client is going to actually show up, right? Most clients don't actually show up for the appointment at the time that you go ahead and set the appointment for, right? The clients are just late, or they just forget, and then it makes you look bad as an agent and as a professional and as a brokerage firm when you're setting up all these appointments with buildings and your clients aren't showing up, and you can't even really handle that, right? So that's one of the reasons I do not recommend setting an appointment for your client. The second reason is that it just takes a lot of time. Why would you want to work harder, right, when you don't have to? Instead of setting up an appointment, I actually tell them no, but then I educate them on why the answer is no. So then I go, hey, listen, and this is all true. I go, in our city, prices actually change on a daily basis. And with that being said, even if we set an appointment for you on this date and on this time, the apartments and the staff have to actually work first come first serve regardless, right? So if you have a 3 p.m. appointment but somebody walks in at 2:50 p.m. and they're ready to lease and they're ready to go, they're not going to have them wait 10 minutes and risk the walk-in free lead to leave the community when they don't even know if you're going to close, right? So by default, these leasing staff are trained to honor appointments if they can, but still honor, walk-ins and first come first serve. That's just sort of how the business goes always, right? And it makes sense. No one's just going to waste the free walk-in that might be more qualified than your appointment that may or may not show up, right? So for these reasons, I actually do not recommend setting up an appointment for a client, and I explain this to my clients as well, so that way they're not mad at you and they don't think you're lazy, even though we do end up working less, right? So it is a benefit. Your clients aren't going to think you're lazy because you're going to go, look, I could set up an appointment for you, but what if someone walks in 10 minutes before? Then they have to help them, which defeats the whole purpose of making an appointment. So what I do, I tell them that I'm going to send you a list of apartments. It's going to have all the details, the address, the phone number, the prices, that were accurate as of when I send it to you. And then I tell my clients that on their own time, they can tour whenever they want, and that I'm always available to them in their pocket on FaceTime or over text, or they can call me, right? So I say that, but the explanation really makes it okay for you to not set up appointments and for your clients to trust you. And actually, I've been complimented more than people getting insulted, right? Like, I used to just tell people no with no explanation, and then my clients would get insulted. But when I would tell them no, I don't set appointments, and I explain to them why, it all makes sense. And they're like, yeah, that's a good point. Why would we set an appointment for this time when someone could walk in and it defeats the purpose, right? So explain everything to your clients, and that's how you get that done. And that's how you work less as a result as well. And your clients will probably compliment you and tell you that you really know every detail about your own business and your own niche, because you know exactly how everything works, even the appointment setting, right? So you're just going to get complimented on being competent, and you get to work less, and the job gets easier, and you're still going to get paid your commission, right? So don't actually schedule appointments for people. It's a waste of your time. Only do that if you like running the risk of them not showing up and just looking silly to a building and hurting your professional relationship and working more. But I mean, if you're into working more for less pay, then just do the opposite of what I just told you, right? So that is actually how you work actually from home. The benefits, demystifying the myth, just do the math. It takes you a couple hours to do one appointment where you could just work 12 people over the phone. So obviously working remote is better. I hope this video actually added a lot of value to you. And if you want to learn more about this business, and I encourage you to check out the free webinar. It's like 60 minutes long, and there's tons of value in there, and it's free to sign up. So click the link before it isn't free anymore. It's free right now. So click the link, check it out. And I encourage you to join our private Facebook group, because we give out free leads, free referrals, and there's like 2,000 of us in there or so, right? So join the private Facebook group. We'd love to see you, and I will see you guys on the next one.